Welcome to the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show. I'm Jeff DiVeronica with my co-host Steve Bradley, here to talk about, Steve, it's a special season here for Section 5 girls basketball, the 50th season ever of Section 5 girls basketball, and all winter long, we're going to have some special interviews, some look-backs, and obviously we're going to be covering Section 5 basketball this year too, so real excited about our next two guests.
Absolutely. We've got Tim Lincoln, who is the state and Section 5 coordinator out of Waterloo. And we've got one of the best players of the first 50 years, Jeff, an all-timer in my book, at least, Megan Shoniker, formerly of Greece Arcadia, now an assistant coach at the University of Rhode Island. 2004
state championship team for Greece Arcadia. She was just a sophomore that year, I believe. And I think I was covering Syracuse in the Big East tournament then, and I didn't get a chance to see that state run, one of the few state champions I didn't cover for our big schools. And Megan, let me just go back real quick. LaToya Anderson and you were like, it was like you and the Jabot twins, and I tell this to your former coach, Scott Smith, all the time. It was one of the most pedestrian state championship large school teams I've ever seen out of Section 5. What do you remember most about that squad? Why was it so great?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I think the biggest thing with that team was our heart. We weren't the most talented. We weren't the biggest. In fact, we were pretty undermanned or really looked at as an underdog throughout the entire state tournament. But the one thing that we did have is we had heart, and we just played the game together, and we played the game the right way. And, Smitty really kind of drilled that in us from the start, and we bought in. And man, it was a really fun run, a fun ride, and something that I'll never forget.
I think you were underdog against Greece Athena in a couple of those years. They had probably a more talented team back then. And Tim Lincoln, this is your, 10th year as the Section 5 girls basketball coordinator? Am I close?
You're right on. Thanks for having me, by the way, too. Yep, 10th year is Section 5 girls basketball coordinator, and 6th is New York State girls basketball coordinator.
And Megan is in her third year, Steve, as at the University of Rhode Island, her alma mater. Beautiful part of the country. I'll talk to her about that maybe off camera at some point. I go out there all the time in the summer to Newport and Narragansett. But but Steve, go ahead. I'll shut up now at this point.
No, you're good. But Tim, I welcome and 50th season of girls basketball. You're the fourth Section 5 coordinator all time. Nancy Viola, Jody Schmeelk, and Kelly Bissell being your predecessors. But what do you have in store to celebrate really the history and the development and the growth of girls basketball in Section 5?
One thing we started already is we've, in combination with the boys basketball program, is we've created a banner that we've sold to schools, and they're hanging those to celebrate both the boys and the girls' anniversaries this year. The boys is actually last year, but since COVID, they're pairing up with us with the 100th anniversary and us with the 50th anniversary. I've been working on pulling back some of the all-tournament teams that used to be back in the programs and putting that historical perspective back together, and hope to have a nice historical program this year for the 50th anniversary. And I've got a couple of tricks up my sleeve that I'm working on that I don't really want to share with anybody at this point in time because they haven't come to the forefront yet. I'm trying to work with Kathy Hoyt and Sean Jeffers on getting some more sponsors for girls basketball and trying to keep those sponsors after being the 50th year going forward.
Megan, let me ask you about growing up being a basketball, and you come from a sports-oriented family. Your dad's an official. Your brother was a great player. When did you say? You were a fantastic softball player. Coach Myers. I remember. Did you win a sectional championship in softball or come close?
We won a couple. We were, I think, 3 years in a row. Yeah. But
why basketball? Why was that going to be your calling in your future? When did that become like your thing?
You know what? It's funny because at a young age, like baseball was my thing. Like I played with the boys. I wanted to be the first girl in the major leagues. And I loved the game. I loved baseball. But, basketball was just something that came so naturally to me. And I felt like almost complete when I was out in the court. I felt very at home, very comfortable in that environment. It was a little bit more competitive, physical. aggressive. That's kind of who I am by nature. And then once, you're pretty good at something, you just kind of go with it. So probably in middle school was when I really figured out that was kind of my path, and that's where I wanted to go. And, 5th, 6th, 7th grade. And I love softball too. It's just basketball just felt like it was a part of me. And so it really wasn't a tough decision once I figured that out.
Megan, when you look back at your playing days in Section 5, what are your greatest memories?
It's all the other players, to be quite honest with you. I developed some really close friendships with some of the other greats in my era. Alyssa Fanine, Jory Davis, Shanice. We all saw each other all the time. We played against each other all the time, and we all really respected each other. Jackie Ward, so it was just seeing our era and how amazing it was for Section 5 and those memories of playing against each other and then laughing with each other off the court. Those are really the things that kind of come to my mind when I look back at my playing days.
She finished 8th all-time in Section 5 scoring with 2,216 points. We'll talk about her coaching career in just a couple minutes after we take a quick break. But before we go there, I want to ask Mr. There it is right there. There's a fantastic list. Look at the great names. Steve Bradley and Coach Lincoln. I still call him Coach Lincoln. Mr. Lincoln. We were just spitballing the other day about coming up with a top 25 list in our minds. And then we're naming names. We're like, and I didn't even go back to like Marlene List or Alicia Sheeler. Steve and I started talking. I said, boy, Edison, like Bettina Love, Tanisha James. These were players that you're not going to see on this list. You're not going to see in this top 20 of the 2,000-point scorers. You're not going to see a single Bishop Kearney name yet because they're so good over the last decade or so. You're not going to see Charisma Bryant, or you're not going to see Mariana Freeman or Sanaya Wilson. These are fantastic players. There's so many good ones. And Tim, from when you started coaching, and you're a girl dad, right? The level of play, how much different is it now than it was when you were coaching Waterloo?
Boy, that's a dangerous question. Let me tell you. I think what we back in the 2000s, I just think there was more of that Division I talent than there is now. And I think the supporting players that were around those Division I players were better role model players than the role model players that you have now. Don't get me wrong. There's some great players that have come through, and you named a bunch of them the past 4 or 5 years. But back in those 2000s, if you look at those names, and just unbelievably, really starting back in the 2000 timeframe and through that whole 2000 decade, there was some great. I mean, go back to 2000 with Rochelle Cherry starting in Nazareth, and then roll back all the way up to Alyssa Fanine in 2009. With the folks that Steve Willoughby had at HFL, and it was loaded top to bottom, AA down to the Bs and rolled into the Cs, and Heather Shepard over at Bloomfield,
yeah,
a couple other folks over there at Bloomfield. You got to think about that, and even down there with Robin Rink who just went into the Hall of Fame as well, from that time period as well. So it's just a different era and a different set of players, and goes from there. So
let's take a quick break. I want to come back and ask you about the name Caitlyn Howe, both of you about that name, and I also want to ask Megan about her. She's a professional now. She's a professional women's basketball coach. Talk about some of the stops in her career, some of her jobs. And now these young girls who are basketball players, and I don't know if Megan could have just known I'm going to be a basketball coach, but now, all right, we'll take a clunky break, come back, and talk more about the Section 5 girls basketball 50th anniversary season right here on the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show.
Looking for a used truck? Can you find one out of 350? At BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com, you'll find one. Love SUVs? 800 are waiting for you to take one home at BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com. at 350 pre-owned sedans, and you've got a total of 1,500 used vehicles only at BobJohnsonAutoGroup.com.
Bob Johnson's got you right. Bob Johnson.
While we celebrate 140 years of serving our community, the kind of delicious joy that lasts a lifetime, we look forward to serving you for 140 more. With hardworking, wholehearted, passionate people who will help shape new memories for generations to come.
When it comes to workers' comp, things can change quickly.
The only way to make sure your rights are protected is to have a trusted, committed attorney on your side.
An attorney who has devoted their career to helping injured workers.
Someone to fight for the money and medical benefits you deserve.
The only person on your side
is the attorney at your side.
Connors and Ferris, your workers' comp attorneys.
The best three things here at McQuaid are definitely the sports, the brotherhood, and the service to community. I think that's a really big, important thing that McQuaid stresses, which is part of creating a better and great man. You definitely feel a connection with your fellow students here. It's being all guy school. You're able to relate to each other on a personal level, and everyone's very welcoming here with open arms and willing to be your friend.
Local McDonald's operators care about our local schools, teams, and student athletes. That's why they support the return of high school athletics in the Rochester area and around the state. See you before or after the big game at McDonald's. Welcome back, Section 5. Game on!
In these challenging times, our dedicated team at American Custom continues to provide top quality installations to every customer. With guidelines and restrictions changing daily, we apply attention to every detail. You can trust our team to make sure the job is done right.
Welcome back to the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show. Hey, you saw our sponsors there. Please support our sponsors. They support our show. They support Section 5 athletics. Some of them certainly cross over. So without them, we wouldn't be talking to Tim Lincoln and Megan Shoniker, our guests, and about Section 5 girls basketball in its 50th anniversary season. And before we took our break, I mentioned the name Caitlyn Howe. She was, maybe still is, the most recruited girls basketball player in Section 5 history. And Megan, when you were probably 8, 9, 10 years old when Gino Auriemma and Duke, where they were coming to watch Caitlyn play for Fairport High School. How much did you know about that as a girl, as a young girl? And did that show you at all the possibilities about, if I keep working, maybe I can get Gino Auriemma to recruit me?
Yeah, you know what? I might have been, I think our careers just crossed. Like, I think as she was a senior, I might have been in 7th grade playing on varsity. And I actually think we were going to play each other. And I think she got hurt and wasn't in the game, wasn't available to play. But, you know, I think.
Well, she was in 99. She was 2002. You were 2007. So that makes sense. Your graduating years. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember going into that game, like, starstruck a little bit, like, wow, I'm about to play like Caitlyn Howe. And then, you know, for whatever reason, she wasn't able to play in that game. But I mean, I think she brought attention to an area that was just never looked at as far as recruiting goes. It wasn't like there was never talent here before. I just don't think people wanted to come to Rochester, New York to watch girls basketball. I don't think they thought there was any talent there. So she just brought attention, and she gave, you know, me and probably plenty of other kids like hopes and dreams that, wow, this is possible. And I could be a Division I basketball player one day. And I looked up to her, and she was a role model for me. I worked with her. She trained me a little bit. And so she's, in my eyes, is like one of the all-time greats, period, in New York. But particularly to Rochester basketball was huge.
Tim is a coordinator for Section 5. I mean, Waterloo, I would term, you know, mid-sized schools. Section 5 has schools all the way from the biggest schools, the Fairports and such, down to the Class D. When that kind of attention is shown on anybody in this section. Is that one of those things that it's good for everybody? Put on your, coordinator hat and tell us how that kind of exposure helps Section 5 across the board.
I think it's great for Section 5. The reason being is because they might see somebody that it's not on their radar. They could walk in to see like Megan playing as a 7th grader, and Caitlyn's going to be in the game, and they're there to recruit Caitlyn, and they see Megan and they go, oh, hey, we've got somebody in the future coming down the road that could be. It's great. Devo, you talked about Gino Ariama about being at the Fairport game. We were actually at the Blue Cross Arena when Caitlyn was playing in one of the games, and my youngest daughter, Courtney, saw Gino there and actually went up to him and got his autograph. And I was just digging through an old box today looking for something else for my daughter, Courtney, and there's Gino's autograph in the box. It said, to Courtney Lincoln, congratulations, Gino. So there's an impact that probably, drove her to do what she did in basketball as well. So it's a huge impact to have those folks come up there and do the recruiting in this area.
Steve, this just hit me as we're talking about this, because Tim is an IT guy. He's really sharp, smart. I hate to admit it, but he's really smart. I initially, he always used to just go, Finger Lakes, Steve-O, come out to the Finger Lakes, get out of Monroe County. And then lo and behold, as he was saying that, one of the top 5 players of all time, in my opinion, Alyssa Fanine, was emerging with this great team out there. The shooter, Marissa Bunn, Shakista Woolfolk. I mean, HFL had the great group down there with Williamson and Chapin and Maddie Brown. I mean, those HFL teams could compete with anybody. And the Class BA level then, Canandaigua had some great teams. But so here's where I'm going with this long-winded question. The website, and I'm going to tie this into both of you. Tim, I think you were really the mover and shaker that got the website developed for girls basketball. And I say this because we're looking at someone atop you that is a recruiting coordinator. And I'm going to ask Megan this first, ladies first. How much does it help you when you can go click to one website and get all the games and see all the points and rebounds? Like Section 5 can do that for you. And not allowed around the rest of the country, maybe you don't get that, but as a recruiting coordinator, to have that one-stop shopping for games and reports, how helpful is that for you?
Oh, beyond helpful. I mean, when I was at, Canisius and Fisher and the amount of recruiting we did locally, that was like my saving grace. Like, you just jump on, okay, what games are on what night? And it saves me time, I don't have to go calling coaches and, searching and finding. And again, I think it's great for the kids because if, I'm a recruiting coordinator, it makes my life easier. So I'm more likely now to go out and see these games. I have easier access to know when these games are. And that is all about exposure then. And you're getting these kids exposure. And so I wish every section, I wish every state, I wish everyone was like that. So it's an awesome tool.
Tim, that was important to you to get that going.
I can't take credit for that, to be honest with you. The first website was Judy Knight. Judy was really the pusher behind that. And the biggest reason we did that is to get sectional seating points automated. It really wasn't fully automated because you put your score in and then you would have to calculate out what your sectional points were. And I can remember, okay, is this a Class A school that I'm playing or a Class C school, and put those points in there. I just took it to the next level and integrated it more into the coaches and got them on board to say it's important to get that information out there. Kids going to the next level, as Megan says. It's a simple one-stop shop for them. Click on a button, I can find out, who's Bishop Kearney playing or who Cage Charlie's playing or anybody's playing. If I'm looking for that kid, what points are they averaging? How are they scoring against other quality teams and things of that nature? And there's a lot of behind-the-scenes stuff that is beneficial for me in rating officials and Coach of the Year voting and a bunch of other things that I do that makes that invaluable as far as I'm concerned to have that website.
Megan, I was hoping that you could describe your roles as an assistant coach and some of the things you do, just kind of to show anybody the opportunities that are in basketball for somebody beyond their playing days. What's your role on the staff at URI like?
Yeah, so I'd first like to say, like, any young females out there who have any aspirations towards coaching, I'm urging everyone to jump in I think our game has come a long way as far as diversity and in getting young kids who have played the game, who know the game, back involved with it. And we need more of it, right? We need more females in coaching. So that would be my plug for that first and foremost. But, my roles on the staff, I'm our recruiting coordinator. That's a huge chunk of my job and what I do. And then I'm also, and Jeff, I kind of said this off air as a joke, I'm also our defensive coordinator. I know that might be a little bit shocking to you. I know.
I'm going to tell Smitty that. Smitty will fall on his face.
Yeah, he won't believe it. He's like, what kind of defense are you running? So I'm our defensive coordinator as well. And then I work with our one-on-one with our wings. So a lot of individual workouts, film breakdown. And then we all have a share of scouting reports and things like that. So a little bit of everything, to be honest with you. Very fortunate to have a head coach that allows us to get our hands in a lot of different aspects of the program.
Jeff, if I could, Megan, just a follow-up, please. What do you look for most when you're recruiting a player? Because our audience is young players coming up, and everybody wants to give advice and tell people what they should and shouldn't do. You're a recruiting coordinator. What do you look for, and what's the best advice you can give a player?
Competitiveness, toughness, work ethic, all the intangibles. Now more so than ever. I think those things are pushed to the side a little bit. I think all this, the skills training, the fancy stuff, I think kids love that. But I think what, has kind of gone more under the radar is just that kid who's a blue collar, tough, competitive, will never give up, never quit. When I'm out there and I see that in a kid, I usually fall in love with them, regardless of what their skill level is. Now, at our level in the Atlantic 10, there has to be some form of ability to put the ball in the hoop or dribble the basketball. But and that's, the intangible stuff is really appealing to me because that's who I was as a player. That's why I was successful. I wasn't always the most talented or the most athletic, but man, when you got out there, I was going to compete. And I just don't think you lose with those type of kids. So that's first and foremost.
And Steve, if all else fails, she doesn't know. She used to every once in a while get a text. Devo, is this kid legitimate? Have you seen her play? Should I go out and watch this kid play? And I'd be like, yeah, she's worth a look. I got a couple of those texts over the years. We can divulge those secrets now. Hey, if you're a competitor, you use every resource available to try to win the game, right? So
100%. 100%. I have. I've sent a couple of those. You're right. I have.
And I'm excited. I mean, I always joke with people. Caitlyn Howe turned me into a girls basketball reporter. I used to cover the boys more before she came along, and then they said, cover Caitlyn Howe. And I love covering Section 5 girls basketball. I still love covering it for mostly the Irondequoit High School team. But I'm excited to talk about girls hoops all winter long. Steve Bradley. I think I do want to put together a blue ribbon panel and try to come up with, I don't know if the top 50 of all time, but maybe the top 25 of all time and we put together our panel. I think it'd be great. I mean, and I'll tell you what, you can knock her off the mountaintop. Shanice Johnson is the best I ever saw. Apologies to the present company here, but okay. Tim Lincoln's nodding. Megan, what if you had to weigh in? Is she number one?
Oh yeah. I mean, it's not. Shanice was, she's amazing. Yeah, she's definitely.
And she's another one that stayed in coaching too, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
At her alma mater, University of Miami. So, Megan Shoniker, thanks for making the time. Good luck to the Rams this winter.
Thank you. Appreciate you guys having me.
Thank you very much. We're going to have other greats on throughout the winter. And Tim Lincoln, your great leadership in Section 5 girls basketball. We sure do appreciate you making time and all the help you give us.
Thank you very much for having me. Megan, great seeing you again. Take care.
Good seeing you as well. Hopefully I'll see you at the state tournament this year.
You got it. Definitely. Looking forward to it. My wife and I missed it last year. That's for sure. Yeah. That's 2 years.
Yep.
Are you guys all wrapped up with your thing here?
Hey, we're bringing people together. It's what we do.
Megan talked earlier about basketball and being a community and really, what got her into being basketball. The other thing you think about, and you had all the players, I think about all the coaches that I've met through the number of years. The basketball family is just huge as far as I'm concerned. And now even being the sectional coordinator and the state coordinator, it's gotten even bigger. And those are what really drives me to do this. And that's what it's all about, is the love of basketball and the people that you surround yourself with, as far as I'm concerned.
It's one of the things I miss about being a sports writer every day is talking to the coaches. Not so much the coordinators, but the coaches.
Right.
Come on, man.
I know.
Tim had us set up ahead of time. I mean, we can kid him because we know him and we like him, but he was one of the most organized out there. He had the brackets ready. He made our jobs easier, and he still makes my job easier today, and I appreciate that. So there's a little love.
Thank you very much.
I used to think
appreciate it.
I don't think he liked me at one point, Steve. You don't have to answer that, Tim. You don't have to answer that. I don't think he liked me at one point.
Jeff, I put it to you this way: if I didn't pick on you, that means I don't like you. Okay.
Just
so
like
when I pick on you, that means I like you.
Just like a good coach would say. For our producer, Joe Barat, for Megan Shoniker, Tim Lincoln, and Steve Bradley, I'm Jeff DiVeronica. Thanks for watching us right here on the Connors and Ferris High School Sports Show on Rock Sports Now.